Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We've got a good show lined up for you today. We're going to have JC join us here. He's texting me, telling me he has Zoom issues. He said he wants to wait to join the meeting, so we'll see if he joins. Also, the second portion of the program, we're joined by former Gator head coach at Tusculum University, Jerry Odom. We're going to talk about Jerry. They're supposed to play in the spring, but I want to get his thoughts. We're going to talk a lot of college football, how difficult it is for defensive coaches to stop these offenses these days in college football. Last night, if you missed it, the Lakers go up 3-1. They defeat the Miami Heat. And then yesterday in Major League Baseball, the playoffs are in full force here. The Braves get a big win, 9-5 over the Marlins. The Astros take a 2-0 lead against the Oakland A's, and they can end that series today. The Yankees and Rays are tied at 1 apiece. Rays get a 7-5 victory over the Yankees, and the Dodgers take a 1-0 lead over the San Diego Padres. Got 4 baseball games today. At 2, you got the Braves and the Marlins. And at 3:30, you got the Astros and the A's. 7 o'clock, Yankees, Rays. And at 9 o'clock, Padres, Dodgers. So that's your pretty much what's going on in the sports world right now. And we're still trying to get JC. Evan, do you? He says he's trying to get into join the meeting. I don't know what all that means, but we will work on JC, who having technical difficulties. Apparently. Gators travel to Texas A&M this week. It's going to be a big, tough battle. I'm anxious to see some of the SEC games have moved due to the hurricane coming. Not sure what the weather's supposed to be like in College Station, but I'm sure it's going to be somewhat rainy. But I think the LSU game that was supposed to be in Baton Rouge has moved to Missouri, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, if you got any text, send us a text. If you want to send us a Facebook Live, you can as well. Again, in the second portion of the show, we're going to be joined by Jerry Odom. Trey says here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. Good morning, Trey. Good morning, Kyle. Appreciate you guys joining in for the program. We got some text here already. Let me pull them up here. This is from Gary on the Titanamar text line. He says, if Kyle got injured, would Anthony Richardson have played last week? Emory's got a little wrist issue, but he was suited up. If you suit up, that means you're well enough to play. So I don't know if Anthony Richardson will get playing time this year. I know they like him a lot, but it's a unique situation, even though this year pretty much doesn't count towards your eligibility. But we don't have those cupcake type games where you can just throw Anthony in there to get him some playing time. So I don't know if he'll get any playing time this year or not. But right now, as far as I know, Emory Jones will be fine if he has to go in the game. But this is Kyle Trask's team, and it's unique to me. It's fascinating because Kyle is a quarterback that's different than all quarterbacks that Dan Mullen has had. So anyway, I was reading this text here. We got all kinds of text. JC's got serious problems. He's not paying his bills, I guess, on his Wi-Fi. But anyway, we got a Facebook Live here brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. Chris is going to give us a weather update. It says only a 20% chance of showers and thunderstorms before 1 p.m. Mostly sunny with a high near 88. Well, that's good. That is good because I was concerned with this hurricane, but it's going to just it's not going to be good for Louisiana, part of Mississippi, and it's going to go all the way up that way. And it's going to be a lot of rain, I think, at the Ole Miss Alabama game. Mr. Producer, do we have him yet? Do we have any issues? Did you pick the? Just tell him to call on the phone. It's very simple. Okay, he's not very technology sound at all. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from WrapSpot. October's your lucky month at WrapSpot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. Just want to give everybody what we got going on the rest of the week. Today's the Wednesday show. Remember, we'll have Jerry Odom here shortly. Friday, Thursday, we're going to have tomorrow. We're going to have our Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup and Brent Beard talking college sports. Friday, we'll have JC, and we'll also have Jeff Tarpley, who covers the Aggies of Texas A&M, giving us his thoughts on the game this weekend. I'll give you my thoughts on the game this weekend while we're waiting on JC. It's a game that concerns me. And the reason I say that is, A&M has a lot of returning starters. Now, that doesn't mean anything, honestly. Just because you have returning starters doesn't mean those guys are any better a year later. But they're coming off a bad loss to Alabama. This is a game that they need to win, especially in year 3 for Jimbo Fisher. They have a lot of talent on this team. However, Kellen Mond has not taken that next step. I don't know if he can or not, to be honest with you. I've seen a lot of him playing, a lot of action, and there's moments where he shines and there's moments when he doesn't. So I think this is going to be a tough game. I think the line of scrimmage, A&M's pretty good on both sides of the ball. They can give us some problems. And when you go on the road, you want to try to control the line of scrimmage. However, the secondary was torched by Alabama and Mac Jones. So I think Kyle Trask and his guys can have a pretty good day if we can block him up front, give him time. But this is not going to be a cakewalk by any means. It's going to be very, very difficult. I think it'll be a close game. We find a way to win at the end. Let's do this, Evan. Let's take a timeout and try to get JC. I mean, all we got to do is just dial a number. So we're going to take our first time out of the pro. When we come back, you're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
This is Shane Matthews. Thank you for listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning. You can also check me out on Inside the Huddle with Steve Russell and the head ball coach Steve Spurrier. Tune in every Tuesday during football season on WRUF 98.1 FM, 8:50 a.m. at 10 o'clock in the morning, or find us on your favorite podcast platform. We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Celebration Point Town Center. Center State Bank. Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, WrapSpot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Radware, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TD Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Hi everybody, I'm Steve Spurrier. I've been fortunate, blessed. A lot of good things have happened during my playing coaching career, a Heisman Trophy, national championship, a bunch of SEC championships also. And we're bringing that same attitude to the restaurant game. In the spring of 2021, we're opening Spurrier's Gridiron Grill right here in Gainesville at Celebration Point. We need some 5-star recruits to help fill all the positions in the restaurant, from the front of the house to the back. So if you think you got what it takes to make the cut, I invite you to have a one-on-one and greet me with some of our management team on Wednesday, October 14th at the Hotel Indigo at Celebration Point. Learn all about our job opportunities with the restaurant. Now let me make this clear. I'm only looking for the best of the best out there. So if you love your job, if you love the restaurant business, if you want to be part of the most elite team right here in Gainesville, then we want to meet you, learn more about you, and hopefully work at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. With your help and the best of food, drinks, service all around, we'll make Spurrier's Restaurant the envy of all the Seminoles and Bulldogs everywhere. We're looking forward to working with you. Be there October the 14th. We plan to meet at Hotel Indigo at Celebration Point. So go to spurrierdraft.com, fill out the application, and we'll schedule you an interview accordingly. Take care and go Gators.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. Now we're going to the Titan MR hotline. Guy who has technical difficulties needs to probably get new internet service. JC, good morning.
Good morning. I don't know. Sometimes you push buttons and you get what you want, and sometimes you push buttons and you have to wait, and sometimes you push buttons and you don't get what you want. So in this case, we went with plan B. You know, sometimes you get up to the line of scrimmage, QB, and you have to call an audible. You know, you have to call an audible. And when they bring the corner rush to you, kind of like the Georgia Bulldogs in that 3-4 defense, when you have these big wide bodies and these 2-gap rushers, what are you going to do when, they actually come through the line of scrimmage and you're sitting there with the football and you don't have a hot read? What are you going to do?
Well, what I would do in your situation is, since I don't have good internet service, I cut that service that I have and get a new player. That's what I would do.
I do have good service. For some reason, that player today has decided not to show up at the ballpark. We'll get it fixed. This morning earlier when I put it on, it seemed fine. But yeah, it's okay. You know, sometimes you just have to make an adjustment. That's okay. But at any rate,
we got a Facebook Live comment here brought to you by Metal Law, where you matter most, from Rick. Rick says JC isn't on because he can't decide which ball cap to wear today because most of his teams lost.
No, well, 2 of my baseball teams went down last night, but we do have always the Atlanta Braves, and when D'Arnaud hit the 3-run homer, which I was watching, by the way, and I saw the 4-4 game turn into a 7-4 game. It was a good thing to see, because even though the Atlanta Braves are playing a team where are they in Texas or they're in Houston, right? So that's always fun. And then you've got the Dodgers playing, who they could have been at home. They're playing, I think, in San Diego. And then you've got the Padres, the Dodgers are not playing San Diego. They're playing in Arlington, I think it is. So it's just funny how they've arranged these teams and where they're going to play. Tampa Bay and the Yankees are playing in San Diego. Now, last time I checked, the Rays play in a dome, so weather is not an issue when the Tampa Bay Rays hit the field. I know they picked these spots out because of weather. They didn't want weather to be an issue, and certainly San Diego, it's not an issue, right? But it's not an issue in Tampa either. But at any rate,
they can't play it in Tampa because then they have the home field advantage, JC.
Yes, because, there's 20,000 fans in the stadium, right? I guess the fake people really are helping the Tampa Bay Rays.
No. It's about your environment, knowing your own field. It has to be an equal opportunity. Come on, use your head there.
Well, okay. No, so you're saying that the Yankees and the Rays, when they played in Tampa, Tampa's had an overwhelming advantage when they played the Yankees.
I didn't say they had an overwhelming advantage. I said they do, though. But think about it. Whether you're the catcher, how much foul ground territory do you have on a pop up?
Yeah,
it varies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they're not
you can
playing.
Make that case.
So
you can make that case.
JC, did you watch any of the NBA finals?
No, I was busy watching baseball. The NBA, look, I mean, I want the Heat to do well. I want the Heat to win. I want the Heat. I like Jimmy Butler. He's a really good. I really like Jimmy Butler for a variety of reasons that maybe not even involve sports, but no, I missed it.
Yeah, well, Lakers take a 3-1 lead.
Yeah, right.
He
we knew
played
that.
well, man. They're giving him a battle.
He did.
Do what?
He did. No, they did. I mean, 102-96 is not a. That's a tight game. And, Jimmy had 22 points, but I'm a Jimmy Butler fan more so than a LeBron James fan. And certainly I'm rooting for Miami to win, but I'm more apt to look at these baseball games. I just enjoy that more.
So is a Jimmy Butler jersey on your list for Christmas?
No. Right now, since you're not able to see me, which is unfortunate, I do have, and since, there is a question about what I'm wearing, the Braves hat is on, and I've got my SMU Ponies sweatshirt because of their great win with Shane Buechele at quarterback. The fact that they had a packed house at SMU, or not a packed house, but they had a lot of fans at the game, and then those fans had to leave at halftime and carry their party on outside the stadium, much like they were doing outside the stadium before the game. I'm just pointing out the stupidity of the whole scenario that they had to live through.
Wait, what happened? I missed this.
So I thought we talked about this on Monday. I'm sorry. We should have talked about this on Monday, but we didn't. But I'll bring it up right now. Southern Methodist University was having their first ball game on campus, and they were playing Memphis, who hadn't played in a month. Well, as it turns out, the students were at the game, and the students were before the game on the boulevard, which is where all the SMU kids go, and they had a great time. So they were in the game. They were not adhering to the social distancing guidelines, much like the Georgia fans who were at the Georgia-Auburn game. And so the university police department and other enforcement agencies asked them all to leave the stadium, so they left the stadium. Every student in that stadium had to leave, and they left. And they went right back outside to continue what they were doing before they even got into the stadium. So if you can think of how ridiculous it is that the police department had to clear out literally the student section and all the students that were allowed at that game before the second half. That's what happened. And then they went back outside and they continued to do what the kids usually do, because 21-year-old kids and 20-year-old kids are going to do what 21-year-old kids and 20-year-old kids do at football games when they haven't done something like this in over, 8 months or so, or whatever it is. Actually, it's longer than that. So, yeah, the students had to leave the stadium, and at halftime, the cops just rolled them out of there. And then SMU continued to play against Memphis and win the game. But, if you think that was going to teach the students a lesson or that something's going to change, you're crazy, because it's a small campus and it's in the Highland Park area of Dallas. And when you leave the stadium at SMU, you don't have a whole lot of places to go. So,
well, my question is, why did they not break up the partying or what have you on the outside the stadium?
Yeah, on the boulevard, correct. Well, because I guess everything was fine outside the stadium, but once they got inside the stadium, university officials or whomever had issues with what they were seeing, so they instructed the law enforcement agencies to clear the place out. So that's what happened at SMU, but it didn't affect the game. It didn't affect how SMU played the game. They won the game. And, I'm wearing my SMU jersey, my SMU sweatshirt right now, QB. It's something good to wear. I mean, you got the red pony, you got the red letters SMU, and they have an exciting team, Sonny Dykes. I mean, that was one of the games I guess I should have picked. We didn't pick it, but we did pick 9 games, and you beat me by 1 last weekend. So I'm sure since Monday you've been on cloud 9.
Well, yes, I have. I've thought about it daily. We got a Facebook Live comment here brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. Chris wants to know, where's that Detroit Lions jersey?
Oh, Chris, I was waiting for Chris. It's true. Yeah, Matt Patricia's got to go. He's got to go. His record is abysmal. I think he's won, less than half of the games. No, his record is awful. It's just that quarterback's being wasted. They're paying him a lot of money in Detroit, and it's too bad. You go up 14-0, and then the Saints score, what was it, 35 it was 35 unanswered points. 35 unanswered points in the NFL. He's got that pencil in his ear. Why doesn't he take it out of his ear and start writing something down and try to make some adjustments so that the Saints can't run off 35 unanswered points with Emmanuel Sanders catching passes and Taquan Smith catching passes? I mean, Michael Thomas wasn't even a factor. And yet there go the Saints, 35 unanswered points after a 14-0 lead. It was, if there was ever a time that you want to make a move, it might be after this season when it comes to Matt Patricia. You know, he came from the New England Patriots coaching tree. He's this, he's that. Everybody's thrilled that he was a Bill Belichick disciple. And then he gets his job, and he basically fails. I mean, he's failing. And I thought that maybe they would be better because the year before they had some bad breaks, and they could have won games that they actually probably should have won. And they didn't because of this or that or the other, but they were in the games. Now they're not even playing. So that's a blowout, and that's too bad. And, yeah, Chris, you're right. The Lions suck. Okay,
we got a Facebook Live here brought to you by Metal Law, where you matter most. Our good friends at Focus Real Estate Group say this Texas A&M game is very scary for Florida.
Yeah.
Each year it seems a good Aggie team plays lights out and upsets a really good team. I agree. I think it is a very dicey game.
I would take somewhat exception to that latter part of the statement where the A&M Aggies, you know, I think they've played 9 or 10 games against teams that could have really changed the trajectory of a program to get it to the next level. And I want to say they're somewhere like they're 1-9 in those games where they've had a chance to really step forward and have a program-changing type of event, type of game, and they're 1-9 in those games. They could have beaten Clemson, and in overtime they lost to Clemson. They could have, I think they won a 7 overtime game in something that was perhaps maybe a program, making type of game. But they've lost 9 or 8 games when they played Alabama, when they played LSU, when they played Auburn, when they played Clemson out of conference. They've always lost these games. They lost to Florida in the first ever SEC game that the Gators played with them over there with Johnny Manziel's first. I mean, they couldn't even beat Florida when Johnny Manziel was there, even though it was his first game. Texas A&M is a program that has to show it before they can start to talk about it. And they've been close, but beating Arkansas and beating Mississippi and beating teams that they're favored against is one thing. Beating Alabama, Auburn, and beating Clemson and teams like that is another, and they just haven't been able to get over that hump. After that Heisman Trophy winning game that Johnny Manziel had, which was the greatest quarterback performance I have ever seen in my life personally, up front with my own 2 eyes in the arena, in the stadium, when they beat Alabama that year, I guess it was 2012, I think it was. Well, when they won that game, you could say, wow, maybe Texas A&M is going to be a real force and Kevin Sumlin is going to be quite a coach. But Kevin Sumlin is not there anymore. He's at Arizona, and he's having trouble figuring out how to win there. And Texas A&M has trouble figuring out how to win the big games. And so Florida's coming in with an opportunity to give Texas A&M a chance to really get their program off the mat. And I just don't think right now, with the way Kellen Mond has failed to show that he can answer in these big games, I don't see why Texas A&M is all of a sudden just going to jump up and beat Florida. Should it be a close game? Likely, because Florida's having trouble stopping people. But Texas A&M is not a team that should scare you because they haven't done it yet. Now, will they one day? Maybe, but they haven't done it yet in a game that could really elevate the program. Their record is awful.
Yep, Texas A&M would have been better off keeping Kevin Sumlin. They'd have a lot more money in the bank. Chris says on Facebook Live, Shane, do you think Kyle will go over 300 yards Saturday passing? Probably so. Every quarterback throws for over 300 yards on Saturdays now.
Yeah.
You know what's amazing, JC? If I were to ask you, where does Kyle Trask rank among the SEC quarterbacks in passing? Where would you say?
Where does he rank in passing? Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'd say 14 teams.
I got to say I'd say he's right now he is 1 or 2.
He's 3rd.
Yeah. Well,
that goes to show Mac Jones and Matt Corral both have a higher passer rating and thrown for more yards on lesser attempts. And it's just, it just goes to show you the game has changed. So many quarterbacks are throwing for. I mean, it's just a given that you're going to throw for over 300 these days. That's why I'm going to talk to Jerry Odom in the next segment. How it's so difficult. Actually, Rick said he's ranked 4th. Maybe I was wrong then. But I knew it was 3rd.
Well, it may have something to do with the rules on defense these days. And I don't know. It just doesn't seem like they can really touch anybody once you get past 5 yards. I mean, it's kind of almost like the NFL, isn't it? Doesn't it feel like defenders have less of an opportunity? Or they talk about 50-50 balls. I think it's more like 60-40 balls, because you're going to get the benefit of a pass interference or something to that effect when you get those toss-ups. And I don't know why it feels that way, but defensive pass interference is called a lot more than offensive pass interference in my mind. And it just feels like right now offenses are way ahead.
Jerry,
unless you're
Georgia.
Unless you're the Georgia Bulldogs. Right now their defense is ahead.
Oh, they're nasty on defense. JC, give us a weather update on these SEC games this weekend, since you're a weatherman.
We're going to have, and I should have mentioned this on Monday because I saw the Invest formulating under the Cayman Islands in the Caribbean, south of Jamaica, or actually just west of Jamaica, as you know. We have an Invest that has now turned into a Category 4 hurricane. They've gone through all of the names this hurricane season and gotten into the Greek alphabet, and we're already at Delta, which means we've already had Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and now we're at Delta. And Hurricane Delta, and actually you could use Delta as a name, I suppose, that's not necessarily Greek. You could call your daughter Delta Dawn, right? But Delta is on its way, and Delta is going to be pounding the Yucatan Peninsula. Unfortunately, it's just going to clip the tip of it, which is where Cozumel and Cancun are. So those areas are in dire straits right now because they're mostly flat areas on the coastal regions of the Yucatan Peninsula. The storm is coming up through there. There is no wind shear that is up in the upper level atmosphere coming off the state of Texas and off the east coast of Mexico to disrupt the upper levels of this storm. And the storm will be marching toward the Bay of Campeche before it takes a right-hand turn and goes north from the Bay of Campeche, which is in the southwestern quarter of the Gulf of Mexico. And it will be going north, and it will be moving quickly, which is the good thing. The bad thing is that over the warm, bathy waters of the Gulf of Mexico, the hurricane will then strengthen back up to a Category 2 or 3 once it crosses the Yucatan. As it enters the upper levels of the Gulf of Mexico, where the waters are slightly cooler, but not a lot, it will likely be a Category 3 and head right into the hurricane-weary area of Louisiana, which includes New Orleans, which means there is literally no chance whatsoever of a game in Baton Rouge on Saturday. This is going to be around Friday night when the storm hits. On Saturday morning, you're going to have just a mess in New Orleans and a mess west of New Orleans in all likelihood. And Baton Rouge is 88 miles northwest of New Orleans, and that's just not far enough or inland enough to save itself from the effects of this hurricane, which means to me the SEC will announce today, the SEC will likely announce today that they will move the game to Missouri or somewhere like that, or not play it. Because remember, they have that extra week. I think they have a week in December where they have allowed there to be a week where they can play a canceled game that they may have had to cancel during the season. So you will get one of two things with LSU and Missouri, and that is the game will move to Missouri or the game will not be played because players and their families need to be concerned about this storm, which will hit that area by Friday, Saturday. And it will also likely affect the Mississippi-Alabama game because Oxford is in the central northern part of Mississippi, and this storm will dump at least 6 inches to 8 inches of rain with tropical storm force winds that will likely disallow Alabama and Mississippi to play. You haven't heard about that yet, but I'm looking at this, and there's just no chance you're going to play in 8 inches of rain with 60-mile-an-hour winds. You're not going to play in that environment. So there's your weather update.
Well, we got a lot of people here thanking you for the hurricane update, JC.
Yeah. Well, that's as good as I can do. I don't know if I missed anything. Did I miss anything?
I think they were joking.
Oh, well,
yes,
I know I'm being facetious.
Yeah, it's definitely going to affect some games this weekend, unfortunately.
Well, and I think it's the Ole Miss game, the Mississippi-Alabama game too. I mean, we're talking about LSU and Missouri, but the Mississippi-Alabama game, I think, will have to be either moved or changed. And I don't think moving it to Alabama is a good idea either, even though the effects of that storm on Saturday will not be nearly as bad as it would be in Louisiana, because it's going to be pretty bad in the New Orleans area.
Yep. All right, JC. Well, we appreciate you. Call your cable provider.
I'll get it figured out. I'll get it straightened out.
Your internet provider and tell them that they stink.
I will get it straightened out.
All right, that's JC joining us on the Titan MRI Hotline. We're going to take our second time out of the program. When we come back, we're going to be joined by former Gator linebacker, head football coach at Tusculum University, the real Coach O, Jerry Odom.
Hey Gator Nation, this is your former head ball coach Steve Spurrier. Check out our show, Inside the Huddle with Shane Matthews and Steve Russell, every Tuesday during football season on 8:50 a.m. and 98.1 FM WRUF at 10 o'clock a.m.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your rug cleaning services.
Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe,
Big Mills Cheesesteaks,
MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Aver and Smith Personal Injury Attorneys, Orange Theory Fitness, PRP Regeneration Specialist, and Dowling Signs.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Point's where the Gators come to celebrate, with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming spring of 2021, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate. We're now going to go to the Titan MR Hotline, and we're going to head up to the state of Tennessee, and we're joined, as I mentioned, the real Coach O, Jerry Odom from Tusculum University. Good morning, Jerry. How are you?
Good, man. How are you, Shane?
Doing great. Jerry, before we get into, because I wanted to bring you on, obviously the Gator Nation loves hearing from you, but we're going to talk a little how hard it is to stop offenses these days. But first, let everybody know about your football program at Tusculum. You know, y'all aren't playing, but you're going to be playing in the spring.
Yeah, we're going to be playing in the spring, doing a conference, a 5-game conference schedule where we can pick up an extra 2, play up to 7. We will play a conference championship in that 5 games. They've kind of split us up. We've got a 10-team league and kind of 5 and 5, like a mountain conference and a Piedmont conference type deal. So you're kind of playing a 4-game schedule within that, and then you're playing someone from the opposite conference for that 5th game, and then they're letting us pick up an extra 2 out of conference. The bottom line is trying to get kids, games. I mean, these guys have worked so hard, and they're having to go through so much just to try to work out and practice and go to school and all that kind of stuff that I'm trying to give them as many opportunities to play in the spring as they can. It was still trying to be safe and knowing they got to come back 3 or 4 months later and turn around and do it again. But, they're college kids. You talk to them about that. They're like, Coach, I don't have to wait another semester to play again. Hey, I'm down with that. So that's kind of where we are right now. It's tough, man, trying to just keep a small university open, make sure you're doing the right thing with the COVID aspect of it, and you're wearing about a bunch of different hats, not only coaching football, trying to make sure that everybody's safe and and doing the right things from the social distancing aspect to making sure everything is super clean and all that kind of stuff to make sure you don't have any kind of outbreak.
Jerry, do the D2 athletes get another year of eligibility?
They do. Yeah, they do. So they can play these 6 or 7 games and it doesn't cost them a year eligibility. They came down. I think the only people right now that the NCAA had made that decision on is Division III. But Division I and II both get an extra year, which is, to me, one of the better things that the NCAA has decided to do over the last couple of years, because these kids have gone through so much and I think they deserve that aspect. Now, it does throw a wrench in recruiting a little bit. Right. Obviously it's not like Florida, where they got guys that are going to move on to the NFL and they still bring in extra guys. You got to look at, yes, you have the extra year eligibility, but do you have the money in your budget to bring in new guys, if you have some? So that's a challenge. That's something that we've been working on trying to figure out, but that's part of being a Division II head coach.
Is it going to be some of those situations where, because how many scholarships are you allowed at D2?
We're allowed to have 36. We don't have that many in this conference, but you're allowed to have 36.
So could there be that opportunity where there are some kids that you're recruiting from wherever around the state? I know you recruit a lot of kids from the state of Florida.
We do.
And you got that fourth team receiver or DB or offensive lineman, and ain't done too much, in the last few years. You may have to say, hey, buddy, you may need to move on because I got to use your scholarship for this kid down in Miami.
It's one of these. It's one of those situations where the NCAA has rules on that. So obviously you got to be careful on how you go about that. And a lot of times if a kid's got the opportunity to graduate and move on and he's not playing very much, they'll kind of do that on their own. They'll see that they're not playing that much and slide out of there. And then, you do definitely document everything. Are you on time to practice? Do you ever miss weights? Do I have any problems with you off the field? Those are all factors that play into that a little bit, other than just the football aspect, when you're trying to talk about those things, because again, you can't just cut guys for being bad football players. It's got to be kind of a little bit of everything involved in that. And they have the ability to appeal that decision if you do move on from a guy. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's one that we're used to. You deal with all kind of things. And I think the thing I've learned more than anything else about this job is the battlefield and adjust, man. Battlefield adjust. You kind of got to roll with the punches and figure it out as you go, because nothing's ever going to be perfect.
Yeah. We got a couple of texts here on the Titan Mar text line I want to ask you about. Then we're going to get into, because you've been watching a lot of ball, I know, and just crazy. This comes from Gary, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it. Ask Coach Odom, is Cade Bell, Kerwin's son, on your staff, and what does he coach?
Yeah, Cade's my offensive coordinator. When those guys left, South Florida last year, he was ready to leave anyway. I think he didn't enjoy being a quality control guy, because there's not a whole lot there's only so much you can do. Some of the programs are real strict on that, and South Florida having to be one. And I think he enjoys the coaching aspect. He's a young guy. I got him. I got another guy, John Peacock, that's a Gainesville guy. It's my O-line coach. Those guys have been working together since Valdosta State. And I think a lot of people don't know that Cade called all those plays when they won the national championship at Valdosta State. Now, obviously, Kerwin's a big influence, but Cade's very bright. I mean, super bright. Got a great plan. And I think we're even going to expand on some of the things he did for Valdosta State. But those guys have been, really good for our kids. It's been a breath of fresh air. They're young. I mean, it's funny, I'll be 52 in a month, I'm getting old, and I'm the oldest guy on my staff by like 26 years. It's like I could be all these dudes' dads, so it's kind of an interesting dynamic, but I got a great young staff and they work really hard.
Yeah. Our other text comes from Daryl on the Titan Mar text line. He wants to know, Jerry, who was the toughest running back you ever faced while you were at Florida?
Oh man, every day in practice, Emmett. Emmett would kill you softly. You know what I mean? Like you played it perfect, and you tackle him, you look up, he's got 5 yards. Like, dadgum. How did he do that? Because we weren't blocking a whole lot of anybody, and there was no passing game when he was there. Now, guys I played against, I thought, as a freshman, I thought Garrison Hurst, you could tell he was going to be really, really good. I thought all those Georgia running backs were always ballers. I always felt like that was kind of running back you knew what you're dealing with then. But I would say, like I said, Willie McClendon wasn't no joke in practice either. He's the one who knocked down both my shoulders. I have surgery on in practice. So people forget, like, spring ball back then with us was a 30-day bloodletting. I mean, it was not this like we're getting ready to go through 15 practices here starting today here up here at Tusculum, and you have to have 2 days in helmets, and you can only take them to the ground 3 days, and the rest of them are, all this stuff. And I'm laughing because it would be 30 days of just let's go. Yeah. It's all out war. And they could break that up and make it go like 6 weeks long. We have to put it or 8 weeks, 10 weeks long. And we got to break it down in like 5 or 6 weeks. So things have changed so much since when we played.
We're speaking with Jerry Odom on the Titan More Hotline, head football coach at Tusculum University. You can follow him on Twitter at TUCoachO. All right, Jerry, we got a Facebook Live comment question from Meldon Law. Jeff wants to know what has changed about college offenses is the rules and the schemes. And this is the main reason why I brought you on because, back in the day, I don't remember how many 300-yard passing games I had, but it was a handful. Right. Now, every quarterback throws for 300 yards.
Yeah, I think the game, two things. I think Coach Spurrier changed the game. I say that all the time, but at the same time, I think the rules have changed a lot. And then, I think it started with maybe Rich Rod and the spread offense back when he was at Tulane. If anybody can remember back that far when Rich Rod was actually at Tulane. And people spreading you out. I think the difference is now you get so many kids come into college now that have thrown the ball a lot. You see all these 7-on-7s and everything else. So everybody can throw. And probably back in the day when we were playing, the best athletes weren't playing quarterback. That's the other thing. Like, you're getting great athletes that are playing quarterback. And what happens to me is you're having to defend 53 1/3. That's how wide the field is. And you're going to have to defend every blade of grass on that field, vertically, horizontally, and everything else. And then it just becomes a numbers game, and then you get guys in space, and then you get freak show tight ends like the one, like Pitts, that is a matchup nightmare that you're starting to see defenses struggle. And I think that's really started probably 10 years ago when you started seeing the zone read aspect of it, because I think what people are doing is they're running a pro concept offense with the blocking schemes, with your inside and outside zone, your powers and everything else, but you're getting multiple plays at one time. You may be a counter to the one side, but they're throwing a bubble screen out to the other. So you're having to defend not only the counter, but the bubble screen too. And you have to, like I said, you got to gap yourself out all the way to the sideline almost every play. And that's just saying, if you get it gapped out, then you have to make a tackle in space. And I think what people are doing, I love what Dan's doing. I think he's doing a great job. He really he stresses backers a lot with some of the stuff that he does, like the throwback bootlegs, the double screens, things of that nature. I think the backers and safeties have been put in so much conflict on what their eyes have to look at too. That's even further in the last 5 years with the RPOs and everything else that goes along with an athletic quarterback. Because now, the way I look at an RPO, that's a double option, but you're throwing it down the field. That's like speed option, but you're throwing it down the field and you're reading the end. So if you're playing one high and you got one guy deep and you're reading one, you're down a guy, right? And then if you have a triple aspect to it where the quarterback can also run, you could be down 2 guys, or 3 guys. Yep. And so you almost have to create your defense where you either got to be good enough and recruit good enough players to 2 gap inside with some of your defensive linemen, or you got to figure out a way to game that stuff, to take away gaps, to push the ball to where your leverage players are in coverage. That's really what it comes down to, because I think when we played, you started from the front and you moved to the back. That was how they installed defense. Hey, we're in a 50 front. We're going to call, this is the front, this is the movement, and then we're going to call the coverage with it. I think it's completely changed now. The way I look at things is you better start in the back end, and then that front's got to make that back end right, and it's almost completely changed.
Yeah, you talk about how it's put the nickel guys, the safety down in the box, the linebackers in a conflict of interest. If you can, just tell people, because one of Florida's best plays out of 2x2, they run the one-back power where you're pulling a guard, right? But Kyle Trask is riding him, and then the backside receivers are running slants.
Yeah.
And so he's reading that area. If that other backside backer flows, he pulls it, and the slant's wide open. And so just talk about how just eye discipline is so difficult now, because those linebackers read a pulling guard, they have a responsibility, but now the guy's pulling and then throwing the football. And it's also the rules have helped the offense, because on all these RPOs, linemen are getting downfield.
You think?
And it's not being called.
Yeah. That they're supposed to be within a 3-yard radius, right? It rarely gets called because it happens so fast. And really, the offenses are doing a great job, because to me, the refs can only see so much. I mean, they're watching for holding and one group, they can only see so much is happening. And when you got, like I said, multiple type of plays going on at the same time, it's like you said. So that's what I was talking about with conflict with the linebackers and safeties. If they're reading a pulling guard, or you're getting a counter look and you're trying to read underkeys as a like, let's say you're playing an outside linebacker, an apex and between the tackle and the number 2 receiver, it's closest to the box, and you get a pull or some kind of one back power, and you have to be the backside B gap player, right? That's your assignment. Now, if you go cover that backside B gap, they're reading you and they're throwing that slant off the back of your head. So, and that's what I was talking about, where like you see teams like Alabama. I mean, I'm sure we do it too, where they're trying to use D linemen to try to 2 gap. They're trying to 2 gap more of that stuff, or they're trying to stunt to create a 2 gap mentality, I guess how you say, and they're having to read the blocking schemes on the run. It's got to be one of the two, because you're having to buy back an extra guy either up front so that you can hold off the RPO, or if you sell out to stop the run, then they're going to throw that RPO on you. And that's where it comes back to an option concept, like I was talking about. Like before, you'd pitch off that guy. Well, now you're just throwing it off the back of his head. It's the same concept. You're just throwing it vertically instead of an old school option concept is pitching off it horizontally.
At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Coach Jerry Odom on the Titan More Highline. Jerry, talk a little bit about tempo. Let's go back to the Ole Miss game. Lane Kiffin and his new offense coordinator that came from UCF, they will go extremely fast.
Yep.
That puts a defense. You can't make any adjustments. You got to line up in some type of base and just play. How difficult that is that on a defense? Well,
it's super difficult because, so we're doing a lot of that here now. That's one of the things Cade and I talked about when he came here, because I think, to me, that's the hardest thing to stop, because the issue is, if you go slow, then you leave me in the game. And what I mean by that is you leave the DC, you leave the guy in the box, you leave us in the game. When you start going really, really fast, not only do I have to call it faster, but the player's got to be perfect. And what happens is, it's just like anything else. They may be perfect for 6 or 7 plays out of the 10, but those 3 plays may be 60-yard gains. And that's really what it comes down to. And it really is, it breaks you down mentally as much as it does physically. Things are going fast. They're having to make decisions fast. So again, instead of us putting them in better situations with calls, you're having to get the call out, and they're having to make decisions out on the field. And I think, you look at UCF's, game, they're not overly complicated. Their passing game is not as, when you start breaking down other college offenses at the FBS level, you don't see a lot of that concept's crazy good. You don't look at them and go, ooh, that's LSU. Because, I've watched a lot of LSU lately, and some of their concepts last year were really hard. But UCF has got it down to where they go so fast, and then they have extremely good athletes out in space, and they're going to take deep shots. They're going to take shots, and they're going to throw out cuts, and they're going to throw slants, but they're not going to they're not going to wow you with that stuff. And their personnel, I think it's the other thing. They're an 11 personnel team, which is 1 tight end, 3 receivers. But that tight end, you see him, he runs routes. He's in the box. Having that guy that can be a little bit of a flex guy, like the Pitts of the world, having that guy that be a flex guy is really what puts you in conflicts as a DC. Do I play nickel? Because if I play nickel and he's in the box, now it's a tougher running game situation possibly for me with my nickel. My extra corner is the nickel guy. But if I play base, then I can't match up with their speed. So I think all those questions are a big part of it. But I think the biggest part, when people go fast now, I heard Coach Spurrier talk about it's a 2-minute offense all the time, which is really the truth. I mean, people going fast all the time, but it's just the battle of attrition there, because at some point somebody's going to break down. On defense, when you're going that fast, you have to have all 11 in sync on the same thing. Because again, like we talked about earlier, you have to gap yourself out in the running game all the way across, plus be good in the passing game. Eventually, somebody's going to break down, and you're going to give up big plays.
Yeah, and so people would ask, why doesn't every school in America go fast like a UCF? And my argument to that is, and I want your answer, because you're a defensive-minded head coach.
Right.
You want your offense now to go fast, but for whatever reason, if they go 3 and out in 20 seconds, now I put my defense in a bad situation. So I'm anxious to see how Coach O, if your O goes 3 and out real fast and your defense just got gassed the previous series.
Well, I think I'm not like I worked for Kerwin for 7 years. Come on now. You know, I mean, you know, I mean, I don't get, and I work for Coach Spur, you know, I mean, I don't worry about that. You know, to me, as long as we can score points, and to me, when you're able to go fast, you're never out of the game. But you're right. The first down, that first series is a big series. And once you get 10 yards, then defensively, like we're like, okay, here we go. We got to be on point, because it's that first down for all these tempo teams that really do everything justice. Once they get that first down, they're on the roll, man. And then, you know, then they're hard to stop a lot of times because they're going so fast. You can't sub. The biggest thing to me is your D-line gets tired, and it's hard to sub your D-line. Those big guys that you want rushing the passer are the guys that you worry about giving up a gap. Like same guys were asked into 2 gap or whatever else. If those guys get tired and they can't go as well, that's the issue that you have. Now, I think really why everybody doesn't run it, look at Wisconsin. Well, what do they have up in Wisconsin? They have massive offensive linemen, you know, and they can still recruit skill. So they're not going to run that. They're going to run, you know, they're going to mash you, you know what I mean? So I think it really is geographically. You look in the state of Florida where all that speed is, right? Mm-hmm. You look where all that speed is. I think that's where you see, I mean, in the state of Florida, who's not trying to go fast right now? I mean, you look at Miami's had a lot of success now that they've kind of gone to that. Florida's not super fast, but they have the ability to go fast. You know, when they want to, obviously. You know, Florida State's trying, but I don't know what's going on there. You know, I just think there are a couple, I mean, that place is, you know, that guy took over a little bit of a mess probably, but at the end of the day, I think Southern football teams are going fast. I mean, you take LSU, for example. They were pretty fast. I mean, you go back and look at them, they went pretty fast, but the thing I thought was very interesting about them, they multiple formations you. And that's the even harder. When somebody's going fast and they can line up in different formations and you got to get lined up and be sound, those are the things. Like when you look at UCF is probably more of a what I call a 3 wides 20 team, and, you know, or 11/20 team. And they don't do a ton formationally. They just wear you down with their tempo. Yeah. So I think there's multiple ways of doing that. And I think you're seeing more and more people do it differently, which makes it even harder for defenses. You know, it's not just guys going fast out of 1 or 2 things. And that literally, I've told people in the last 15 years, defense has gotten so much harder than it used to be.
There's no question about it. Well, Jerry, that was great stuff. I know the people love listening to you. Good luck to the Pioneers starting practice and in the spring, and we'll have you back on, my man. Y'all stay safe up there in Tennessee.
Will do, and looking forward to this weekend. Hope the Gators can keep this thing rolling against Texas A&M, right?
Yep, no doubt. That's Coach Jerry Odom joining us on the Titan MR hotline. This Day in Sports is brought to you by Area Rug Masters, Gainesville's most trusted area rug cleaners. With free pickup and delivery, Area Rug Masters is the convenient way to keep the focal point of your room looking brand new. Call Area Rug Masters 352-448-5999. This Day in Sports, people are going to like this one. In 1916, Georgia Tech, coached by John Heisman, defeats Cumberland 222-0, the most lopsided score in the history of U.S. college football. 222-0. You think they got on him for running up the score back in 1916? Anyway, that was a great show. I want to thank JC for joining us, and then my good buddy Coach Jerry Odom. Good stuff. The guy knows defense, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to Coach Odom. Don't forget, tomorrow's our Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. Got some new coaches going to be on. Look forward to hearing them. Also, our good friend Brent Beard giving us the rundown of what's going on in college football. Stay safe out there, folks. Today's show's a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. See you tomorrow.